Don't you wanna bet that I can get you back inside your head before the summer ends, and spread a little love just for a little fun? I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be. I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. There's rhythm in our love, it's impressive, excessive. You can't make this stuff up. My chest beats, it's restless, wakes the neighbors up above. Yeah, baby, come and show me love. Baby, come and show me love. Because you're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
Take a one-way ride, steal us away to find a place we can hide. It wouldn't take much to speak overnight, just to give in to the need and leave it all behind.
'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. 'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
Good morning, folks. August 11th. Thanks for watching Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. I am the People's Pundit, Rich Barris. You guys can follow me if you don't already at People's_Pundit on Twitter. We'll talk about the Biden Veepstakes today. We're going to give you a little inside peek into what happened, who the front runner is, what you can expect. And then we'll talk about, of course, the economy, what's going on in Seattle. So get your questions in because Madam Producer is back with us today. And it's not going to be a freewheeling Friday, but she's got to make up for it. Had to register the kiddies yesterday for 9 weeks of online instructional that is useless to children. Boo! Oh, we need sound effect. You know what? We got them. I just never use them, right? Anyway, Joe Biden. Let's start with Joe Biden. Okay, let's start with what happened because Joe Biden, the announcement for Joe Biden's vice presidential pick is imminent. And there are forces behind this announcement. Poor Joe doesn't even get to pick his own vice presidential nominee. And in fact, he boxed himself into a corner being Joe Biden at his age and his mental faculties right now. So early on, if you guys don't know, Joe Biden kind of made the pledge that he would pick a woman and even got pushed a little farther at one point during the early contests in the Democratic nomination that he basically needed to pick a black woman. All right. Now, there are several candidates that Joe Biden has been weighing here. Kamala Harris, of course, you all know. Susan Rice, Representative Bass. Susan Rice is currently the front runner. I can tell you that. And I will. That is true. I know. It's crazy. We now live in an era where a woman who lied to the Sunday shows. And if you're liberal, you don't want to hear this, but it's true. I tell Trump supporters things they don't want to hear all the time. So just deal with it. Okay. A woman who went on 5 Sunday shows and lied to the nation about a terrorist attack and claimed that it was from a protest in reaction to a video that mocked the Prophet Muhammad. It was the biggest load of crap you'll ever hear, but that's what happened. All right. And then, of course, we've gone over this in the show before, when the transcripts were finally made public, Adam Schiff could no longer hide the transcripts. Susan Rice was all over MSNBC, telling the world for 2 years, and CNN and everyone else who would listen to her, that Donald Trump was potentially a Russian traitor and agent who colluded with Vladimir Putin to interfere or influence with the 2016 presidential election. Of course, she told the House behind closed doors, and we've gone over her testimony in great detail on the show. And if she is picked, we're going to do it again. I hate to tell everybody, but maybe no one else will, but we will. And she was lying because she told under oath, she said something very differently, which was that they had absolutely no evidence against Donald Trump, not even any suggestion, a whiff, a fart, that the man was a traitor and who colluded with the Russian government. But she didn't tell the American people that for years. So if she is picked, then that's what we'll do. It's unbelievable that we are at a time in our nation's history where that would even be a serious consideration. I mean, that would be disqualifying in generations before us. But because we... because we are... Integrity is dead. Journalism is dead. They absolutely will do what they could, basically to help the Democratic ticket. That's it. So that is the juice right now. So we're expecting an announcement anytime soon. And just before, what happened is Harris was the leader weeks ago. And if you guys remember, they had to push the Veepstakes. They had to push the announcement back. The Biden campaign was supposed to announce the vice presidential nominee last week. It got bungled. The campaign blew it. It would be nonstop coverage for 24 hours if this was a normal election cycle, even if there was a Republican candidate that they didn't like who was not named Trump. All right. But because we're going to see something very unprecedented this year, this election cycle, the media handicap. All right. And don't forget, folks, hashtag media handicap, hashtag media handicap. All right. When you see bias, it's not bias anymore. It's more than that. It's the media handicap. You see it on Twitter, hashtag media handicap. It's like playing 9-ball in pool. Think of it like that. The media's job is to give Democrats the 6. I'm not talking about like a 3 handicap. I'm talking about like the 6, which is part of the answer to your question, Richard, on Twitter. I will get to it. I promised you I would, and I will, about the House. All right. Anyway, Harris was in the running at the top of the list for weeks. It was not a head fake. He screwed up. He showed the AP his notes like an idiot. Okay. Because that's what he is. All right. And then what happened? Politico ran a story about it. Chris Dodd, who is at the top of his, there's like Team Dodd, and he didn't want to leak it to Politico himself. So he gave somebody the go-ahead to go tell Politico that they don't like that pick, that they find her to be disloyal, she's unlikable, and she is. All right? She is very unlikable. In the state of Florida, her numbers were so bad. At least Joe Biden was like well-liked in the state of Florida, even among seniors who were like that Bill Nelson turned Rick Scott voter. They at least liked Joe Biden. I'm not sure they'll vote for him, but they at least liked him much the same way that they liked Bill Nelson. All right. Well, anyway, make a long story short, they kneecapped Kamala Harris because they didn't want that going forward. That's just the game. That's the war that the game of politics is. It's that kind of a war. And they kneecapped her, and they were pushing for Bass. Okay. Who has their own issues. Susan Rice definitely is the top of the list right now with most people that we've talked about. And just in case Joe Biden thinks of getting any ideas of making his own decision and choosing somebody who is not a black woman, 100 black male leaders, from celebrities to religious leaders, sent Joe Biden what they call a statement of solidarity, requiring, that's the word, requiring a black woman vice president, as if, by the way, it's already a foregone conclusion that he's going to win. And I'm going to read you this thing in its full context, in its full. Are you ready? As someone who has said throughout the campaign that VP Joe Biden needs to choose a black woman VP, the urgency for that pick has gone from something that should happen to something that has to happen. It disgusts us that black women are not just being vetted in this VP process, but unfairly criticized and scrutinized. And we're going to get into how much they really care about black women who are professionals and do their job very well in the follow-up story. after this one, in the follow-up segment to this one. Was Joe Biden ever labeled, quote, too ambitious, unquote, because he ran for president 3 times? Should President Obama not have made him the VP because he had to worry about his loyalty? Sound familiar, guys? This is fighting back for Kamala Harris. When he clearly had ambition to be president himself? Why does Senator Kamala Harris have to show remorse for questioning Biden's previous stance on integrated busing during a Democratic primary debate? Have Democratic Party leaders, allies, or donors ever required Joe Biden to show remorse for the 1986 or 1998 anti-drug abuse bills, which established mandatory minimum sentencing and subsequently crack cocaine sentencing disparities, and by his own admission, led to mass incarceration? What about the 1994 crime bill? Let's be clear about the kind of remorse and reckoning that matters in 2020 when the Black community is still suffering the consequences for these oppressive measures. So, Black women are the only ones required to stay in their place and to show remorse for even questioning their own oppression? All right, folks, are you feeling me? Does this sound familiar, by the way? What was it, Friday, Laura? We ran those video clips of Biden in the 80s and 90s and his baggage that he had. And my point is that, well, their point is that picking a Black woman is going to help that, and they're defending Kamala Harris here, and they think the scrutiny that she's getting is unfair. Listen, folks, just to interrupt your little letter, if you think the scrutiny that you've seen with Kamala Harris is bad now, wait until Joe Biden picks him. I have it. I just spoke to somebody over the weekend. They have a totally different story. There are bombs in Kamala's briefcase. Bombs. You think she got unfair scrutiny before? I don't even want to tease it, Laura, because it's so bad. It's so bad. There's not just one either. Like I thought, and I met with somebody and spoke over the weekend with them thinking, I wonder if they're on to the same thing that we're on. And it was totally different. And then we started exchanging stories, asking different, hey, well, your source talked to mine, blah, blah, blah. There are bombs. This woman's rise in politics is like, everybody's is typically disgusting. This woman is super disgusting. Okay, there are bombs in her briefcase. And they're worried about, what are they? Weapons of mass destruction. WMDs. Oh, I should have put her on the mic if you guys couldn't hear. She said they're not bombs. They're WMDs. And she's right. They're bad, folks. They are bad. So it's a good thing Kamala is not at the top of the list, at least with people we hear about. But anyway, good thing for Biden anyway. Back to the letter. Quote, for too long, Black women have been asked to do everything from rally the troops to risk their lives for the Democratic Party with no acknowledgement, no respect, no visibility, and certainly not enough support. I will say this in Joe Biden's defense. It was Black women in the 1990s who supported this crime bill more than anybody. The Black communities wanted these anti-crime measures more than anybody. The communities were suffering greatly from crack cocaine addictions, violent crime associated with the drug trade and drug use and abuse. And that is what pushed and fueled political support initially for the crime bills. So I do find it disingenuous and a little bit unfair that 2 decades later, 3 decades later, 4 decades later, everyone's like scrutinizing these decisions. Joe Biden was just doing what the white liberal does, which is finally react when the minority community is pushing up on them. It wasn't Joe Biden's idea. He was reacting. He said, all right, this group, this constituency is getting a little bit too loud in my ear. Craft them something. That's how these crime bills went. I mean, I just played you guys the State of the Union rebuttal that Biden did in 89. He was saying that President Bush's anti-drug and crime policy wasn't strong enough. The Democratic Party was doing that at the behest of the Black community. So this is a little bit disingenuous. I mean, like P. Diddy signed this letter, by the way. You were still in your P. Diddy diapers when Joe Biden was doing it. You have no idea what you're talking about. All right, fake gangster, you have no idea what you're talking about. Anyway, more than 700 Black women signed on to a letter demanding a Black woman VP, and we Black men stand in solidarity with them. Failing to select a Black woman in 2020 means, all caps now, you will, uncap, all caps, lose the election. You will lose the election. We don't want to choose between the lesser of two evils. We don't want to vote the devil we know versus the devil we don't, because we are tired of voting for devils, period. Vice President Biden, don't take that risk. Black women are defining the future of politics. So it's time you let one define the future of your campaign. In solidarity, Sean Diddy Combs, Leonard Charlemagne the God McKelvey, who was told he's not black if he doesn't vote for Joe Biden. So this is, look, though, I got to be honest, and this may get me in a little bit of trouble. I got to be honest. He's going to nominate a black woman, throw them a little nugget, and then do nothing to help them anyway. This is what they fall for every time. It's so true. They fall for it every time. And Sean Diddy Combs won't care because he'll be living the high life in his like multi-million-dollar mansions that he has scattered throughout the country while his community suffers on the daily. Where has he been to work with Donald Trump while the black community experienced the lowest unemployment rate in conjunction, Sean, with rising labor force participation rates? Under the Obama-Biden administration, the falling black unemployment rate was a methodological gimmick. It was because so many black workers were leaving the labor force. That's how the methodology at the Bureau of Labor Statistics works. They were not getting jobs, man. They weren't getting jobs, Charlemagne. They were quitting on the American dream and standing on the street corner, and you freaking know it. You know it. James Gee, Jeff Johnson, Dr. Wes Bellamy, Reverend Jamal Bryan, Shelley Davis, Benjamin Crump, who extorted the state of Florida out of millions and millions of dollars in the name of civil rights cases while Charlie Crist was governor, made a real, before Trayvon Martin, already had a very lucrative business extorting Charlie Crist in the state of Florida. Karim Webb, Eddie Glaude, Dean Taylor, Randall Pickett, Van Jones, who spent time at CPAC talking about how Donald Trump was the only one who really did anything. Criminal justice reform. I mean, it's sad. You know, you guys vote how you want to vote. You're Americans. You could do what you want. I'm just saying, you guys are living over here while the rest live over here, and you're not helping them. You're just not helping anybody. It's just sad. You want to get in here, Laura? Because look, let's be real about this for a second. You and I both have more time in an American ghettos than some of these people, and you know it. They're not gangsta. No. You know, hold on. Let me add Laura here, folks. She wants to say something. Let me add her. Can you guys hear her? Speak up and let me see. There you go. Say something.
All right. It's just, I don't want people to think that you're influencing their vote. What you're trying to do is keep the core principle of America at its base core, how it was designed, why everybody wants to come here. It's not, not everybody gathers to America because they're so happy from where they came from. They come running to America to have the American dream, but at the same time, they are being misinformed. And that misinformation manipulates their vote. Yeah.
Yeah, it's throwing us off. And don't we have an obligation to take care of the people who are here first? And this is a community that has been, no, look, you guys, I know a lot of you won't agree with me on this. I don't really care. Spend some time in an American ghetto, like I was just saying, and you'll see they have been neglected by both the Democratic Party takes them for granted, and the Republican Party thinks their vote is a lost cause, so they just ignore them. For years, this has gone on. And then they have these, like, I don't even know what to say, like, betrayed by these leaders. Like, so what? What did, honestly, let's get real for a second. What did a black president do for the black community for 8 years? Nothing. What did his number two do for them? Nothing. Except for in 4 years when they needed to scare them back to the polls, he said that Romney would put them back in chains. Like, I mean, this is crazy. This cycle has to like end eventually. Otherwise, I just don't see like the leaders are going to be satisfied with these crumbs that get tossed to them while the people they're supposed to lead are suffering. You know, go ahead. You want to add to this?
Well, you were talking about the ghettos. Now, I'm from the ghettos. I'm from the Bronx, also known as Hell's Kitchen. And the thought that AOC is from the Bronx is like me saying I'm the Dalai Lama.
Look, that's a whole other show. Can we get into that? Laura's gonna have to rip on this one day. Laura has long said, and look, it is what the girl is not. She's Jenny from Yorktown Heights, dude. All right. I mean, and it's like, but that's a leader. All right. Go ahead. You want to say something? Go ahead.
Yeah, no, well, what I was saying is absolutely right. She is used to everything being fed to her on a silver, maybe golden spoon. And she wants to tell me she can relate to those people who are suffering in the Bronx. You're out of your mind. Those people never step foot into the ghetto. Republicans, you need to step foot in the ghetto. I don't care if it makes you feel uncomfortable. Black, Hispanics. Yeah, but Black, Hispanics, mixed races, we have feelings too. And if you can't get yourself into the ghetto, then you should not be running, period. That's how.
I might have unclicked you. Yeah, because we're like leaving whole segments of the population out of the debate. So then you wonder why they get so angry. Yeah, and the information is only coming from one source, one way, and I'm not sure it can go on like that. Balkanization, Laura, ends badly. It doesn't matter whether it's like we sometimes get this feeling in our head like we're special or something, like America is still subjected to the same laws of political science that everybody else is. Balkanization ends badly. It ends with violence and strife and racial hatred, and that's how it ends. Well, yeah, right. I mean, right. That's where this path leads us, which brings us to the question of they'll get this like stupid little token pick, right? While the Seattle Police Department, the chief of police in Seattle, all right, for those of you who don't know, Carmen Best resigned in Seattle because the city council and, they're backed by, the elected officials over there. They will defund or at least cut the police budget. This is a competent, and I know some people criticized her. It's not on her. This is a capable, competent, accomplished African-American woman who led the city's police force. And she's essentially, she has run into retirement because of the liberal order. There's not, because of the liberal order. They've run this woman into retirement. She was not capable of doing her job. She started to feel, and how could you say, how could you disagree with her? It's hard to lead a police force that can't defend itself. And so you're giving orders to these people every day. I can't even imagine what it's like to be her. With your hands tied behind your back, you worry about these people that you're sending out to the beat, Laura. And and not only are they not allowed to do anything, they're told to basically just take abuse day in and day out while there's days and days. What are we at? 70 days of unrest in that city now or something? It's like 70 something days, 71. This is crazy. And she's not allowed to do her job. So how much where's Sean Diddy Combs when Carmen Best has to resign for not doing her job? Like, these people are a joke to me. They're look, that's it. Where, and by the way, who is gonna suffer? They want to talk about the crime bills. Who is gonna suffer from this next person? God willing, it's somebody capable. But what if it's not? What if it's somebody willing to play ball with this stupid new order of defunding the police? Right. She was not willing to do that. Who is it ultimately going to hurt the most? The people in the inner cities. Now, Seattle is obviously a very liberal and even relatively speaking, very white, city. But it will hurt those people that they're claiming to champion. But that's all right, because they'll send Joe Biden a letter claiming that they need a vice presidential nominee that's a black woman. And if they got their pick with Kamala Harris, her campaign was destroyed in 8 minutes. And 45 seconds of that 8 minutes when Tulsi Gabbard just railed on her with her prosecution record. What would give them any hope whatsoever that Kamala Harris was going to be the one to provide relief from this so-called oppression?
don't see it.
I don't see it either. It's just crazy to me. And I think sadly, like I said, sadly, in the end, those who will really be hurt are the ones they claim to protect, defend, whatever. I mean, folks, the proof is in the pudding. The proof is in the pony. If Joe Biden was to win, which is the lead up to the next segment here, and we're going to do a quick little spiel, but if Joe Biden was to win, I hope that my little theory that this coronavirus, and the reaction to the coronavirus will disappear the next day on Wednesday. Okay. I hope it does, because we're going to, speaking of hurting people, we're going to go over, for some of you guys who've been watching a long time, we've been tracking that census survey about small business, the impact coronavirus has had on small businesses. And it's not coronavirus. I got to catch myself every time I say that. It's the impact that the stupid shutdown has had on the economy. It has nothing to do with the virus. The virus is just the virus, folks. It's how we react to it. We can't blame coronavirus, the particle. You got to blame ourselves for doing it, right?
Right. But if you stay inside, you're covered. Don't worry, you won't get it.
I mean, we're going to hide from this thing.
Or
if
you protest.
Look at New Zealand, or if you protest. Look at New Zealand. They're going to shut down all over again because one family has one case. This is crazy. What happened to slowing the spread? The point was to slow and that's from New Zealand to, the United States. The Western world said that we needed to shut down and lock down because we needed to slow the spread to stop the rampant collapse of the healthcare system that was imminent and would happen if we did not slow the spread of the virus and stay within our homes and hide and lock down and commit economic suicide. That was the logic. That was the argument. Now that argument has turned into we got to hide until there's not a single virus particle on planet Earth. This is crazy. Paul, there is, and just to answer the question, there is, but they have the one case that made this, that is causing them. Now they're worried about the family, and that's it. It's that town. All right. And the town is, I will get you the name of the town. Give me 2 seconds. Where are you? This is, it's just unbelievably stupid. Auckland, it's called. I'm not from there. So if I'm killing your city's name, I'm killing your city's name. But here it is. Here's the statement from what is basically their mayor. All right. I am urging Aucklanders to come together like we did last time to stamp out community transmission. Please remain calm. Do not panic. Buy and please follow the lockdown rules. I understand that people are probably feeling a little bit scared, a little angry, and a little confused right now. None of us wanted to go back into lockdown. I think you did, actually, but we always knew this was a very real possibility. This is crazy. And Jared, a follower on Twitter, I just saw he responded to this thing and he says, "You dumb bunny, this will happen over and over forever. You live on an island and this type of illness will never be eradicated from the earth. Herd immunity is patient and we'll wait you out, but not forever. It's all right though. You've had a bad cold before." This is nuts. Nuts. And by the way, before that, I just say, speaking of Twitter, it really just, it seems a lot of people agree with me. Like, you just got to congratulations, Seattle. You have to congratulate them. You've chased out a competent, capable African-American chief of police because you're crazy, you're nuts, and you didn't have her back when she needed you the most.
But Black Lives Matter.
Who will suffer because of this, right? Sounds like a super progressive society. What a load of crap. It's such a load of crap. All right. Here we go. So let's do the little quick spiel. We'll come back. We'll take a look at because ultimately fear porn and panic induced fear, it spreads like wildfire, even across continents, even from one island to a mainland and across the Western world. If one idiot does it because of one case, this is the kind of mentality we're going to deal with. Unfortunately, we should be rocking the economic data. A lot of it is good, but it's not as good as it should or could be. And in the month of July, I'm hoping for a better August because we're seeing a lot of people. We're going to go over this. We're seeing a lot of people. Folks, if you've been with me since the start of this, then you remember the debates early on this show about whether or not, if you gave people the provision in the CARES Act with the extended unemployment benefits, whether or not people would take those unemployment benefits instead of going back to their job after their job ran out of the loan for the payroll protection program. You guys remember that argument? I know a lot of you are still here watching the show from the beginning. You damn well know that I was right, and that was going to always happen. It's human nature, and you should always take the good with, take the bad of human nature with the good, try to tailor public policy in a way that promotes the best elements to us, the best behaviors that we exhibit, and disincentivizes us from acting without our worst behaviors. Giving people those extended benefits instead of encouraging them to go back to work was always going to result in chronic long-term unemployment. I'm hoping that in August we start to see, because they're pushed into the labor market, I'm hoping that we're going to start to see them go back, because I'm going to show you what small businesses are telling us. And it's very frustrating, because clearly this economy was getting ready to pop in January and in February. Like I've told you guys before, the Trump economy was strong, but it was not firing on all four cylinders. The housing market was not there in the way that you would expect it when you see upward wage pressure as strong as we were finally seeing under Donald Trump. And that means people have money, they have stability, and they feel like now is the time to buy a home. I'm going to live the American dream. I'm going to get that house. I'm going to have, with families, I'm going to start a family, whatever. That's why housing is so important. And then this thing came just as builder confidence was really starting to translate into new construction statistics, which is housing starts, building permits, and the lagging housing completions, right? You have permits first, then you have groundbreaking, which they call housing starts, obviously. You got to get your permit before you can break ground. And then you have completion. So it's a 3-tiered process. And we finally started to see that data really burst, really kick in. The National Association of Realtors, even existing homes were being bought out. Inventory was always a problem, but this time it was a problem because people were gobbling them up. Pending home sales, which is a forward-looking indicator with contracts, it was all coming together in one magnificent, beautiful explosion of economic growth. It was not going to slow down like these frauds on television kept telling us. That was not going to happen. The only reason why Q1 was -5, it's in the BEA press release, folks. It was because of the stay-at-home orders at the end of the quarter, and it killed it. It killed us. And now we're seeing housing is being resilient, but I got to tell you what small businesses are telling us, what they are saying, because it could be so much better. The V is not what Larry Kudlow promised Donald Trump. And I'll say this again, if Trump loses, it's because two things: he didn't listen to his gut and his advisors didn't care enough. Because it doesn't really matter if it's Donald Trump, Barack Obama, who the hell ever. If I was working for a president and they had a stupid idea like this, and the dumb experts he just ran against, he just told the working man and woman, the forgotten man and woman, that he wasn't going to let these stupid stiff upper lip experts anymore destroy their lives. If they came to me or with an idea to destroy their lives, I'd be on my knees begging him not to do it. And they did not do that. In fact, Larry Kudlow promised him this real big resurgence. And while, yes, there is a strong bounce back, it is not what, one, it could be, and two, really what it needs to be. He's right on the line. He is not where he needs to be when it comes to his reelection chances. He's just not. He's got to get over this hump, and he wasn't going to get it. Can you shoot out the link to the YouTube video on the comments, and I'll do it too, because I know Periscope is always laggy, folks. It's always laggy. I just did it. I got you. Here you go, Lemon. All right. There you go. All right. Sometimes Periscope. Okay. Oh, then they moved over. Periscope feed is glitchy. Sorry, I just saw that. That's the thing. I didn't see where it was coming from. We can actually see whether or not it's coming from YouTube or Periscope, but sometimes I'm just doing my thing and I didn't look. All right. So it's 11:04. You're watching Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. I'm the People's Pundit. Follow me on Twitter if you don't already, at People's_Pundit. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel on YouTube, People's Pundit Daily. hit that subscribe button, turn on your notifications so you know when we're going to go live. You might have noticed that we're starting to creep back to our original time slot. That's because the show with Barnes on Wednesdays, don't miss it, 2 p.m. on Wednesday, the live stream. That is not going to be Inside the Numbers. That's a different show. We just did it last week to promote that. So I'm going to do the 2 hours from 10 to 12, like we've been doing until this moving process. All right. And then today was 10:30. I'm trying to creep us back. But Barnes will be on at 2 o'clock, Barnes and I. All right. I think it's going to be called What Are the Odds or something, right? Anyway, I guess we'll have to see it tomorrow. But that will be at 2. So I get a little bit of a break. 2 hour break. So Wednesdays will be like a 4 hour on air thing. All right. And don't miss that tomorrow. We got a show tomorrow. Barnes and I are going to talk about how we're going to do this polling, question designs. We actually started already working on survey designs. I will say this. We may have to go the route, even though you guys got us to that milestone on YouTube, which we love you for and keep it up. Because, of course, the bigger the subscriber number, the better. They want a lot. and unless we can come to some kind of alternative, understand. I just think that that's an awful lot of your money to be taking as a processing fee. I think it's crazy. I think it's nuts. All right. So maybe we'll just go with like a PayPal me or something, which is in the thing. People always ask me to put that in there. If you're on YouTube, it's in there now. Maybe we'll just go with that. I'll set up like a separate thing so people can track how much money is going in there. Because remember, transparency is key here. Transparency is key. If not, we'll do the GoFundMe. The only thing is, I know some people have expressed to me a little bit of concern. They don't want to be out there like on the wall. How GoFundMe says, so-and-so gave $100. So-and-so gave $400, $50, $20, whatever. They don't want to be on that wall. And I understand that in today's day and age. I understand it. All right. But GoFundMe is transparent though. I do like how they do that. But ultimately we'll give you guys, the heads up on that. All right. But we got question designs, a way to kind of measure the social desirability bias this year, which I think is prevalent, even though 2016, we heard a lot about that. I never was quite convinced about it as being a huge explanation. Obviously can account for some, but I didn't see it and don't still as an explanation for such a big miss in 2016. I think frankly, they're just not, and they're still not reaching the people they need to reach. All right. I think that's honestly the number one. And then this year, social desirability is bad, but we'll get into that. Don't miss that because we were going to want to hear about your polling ideas and question ideas. And, if it's something I think we can tailor into a question, and you guys put enough upvotes on it or something, then we'll add it to the questionnaire. We're going to do something totally different here, folks. If you can do this and fund this is going to be like history in the polling industry. It's going to be really cool. And it's going to force others to say, you know what? Why the hell doesn't CNN give us all this information? Why doesn't I can't beat them in a war of attrition like that. Like there will never be that much, they'll just keep cranking them out. You have to kind of shame them into transparency. And that's what we intend to do. All right. And then, of course, don't forget to like the page, People's Pundit Daily on Facebook. And if you're a Facebook watcher, if you like the page, then you get the notification. And the best way, of course, to support the show is to subscribe to People's Pundit Daily, which you can do by going to ppdnews.us/subscribe. ppdnews.us/subscribe. All right. First things first. Give me a hot minute here. I want to show you the National Federation of Independent Business. They, of course, are the Small Business Optimism Index. If you are a subscriber to PPD, then you know. I'm going to show you the results of this first for the month of July. And then we're going to talk about the census survey, which it takes a totally different angle. And I think it's really cool. And if you remember, I started to show you this the very first time it came out, just to show everybody how badly it hurt to do this lockdown. All right. Anyway, the Small Business Optimism Index dipped 1.8 points in July to 98.8 from 100.6. Less than expected. It missed the forecast, though it is near the historic average. So let's be real about this. Again, sometimes there's nowhere to go when you're up. There's nowhere to go but down. But we don't want to see that. We want to see it to continue to go up. But it is important context, or maintain. It is important context that this still is the historic average, roughly around the historic average for this 43-year survey. All right. 4 of the 10 index components in the NFIB index improved. 5 declined, and 1 was unchanged. Forecasts range from a low of 97 to a high of 101.8. The consensus, though, was 100. So again, at 98.8, it missed the consensus forecast. Let's look at the 1 year. Here's, of course, you always get this. You guys know that. You always get this on PBD. Here's the entire series data. All right. Go to the 1 year. You can clearly see the decline here in March and in April. It started already to tick back up. The Paycheck Protection Program saved about 84% of small business payrolls, if you believe the Small Business Administration data. And if you believe, but look, the NFIB who runs this survey was a big lobbying component in the PPP when they were making the sausage, not only for the initial CARES Act, but for the re-up of PPP that was later done, that Democrats held up multiple times. The NFIB had a big voice in how to curtail and tailor, how to get money in the hands of small business owners. And in fact, they've been tracking whether or not their small businesses that they poll have gotten loans. How difficult was it? Does anybody else need liquidity? What's the deal? I mean, this is what they do. So it worked, but the problem here was not the PPP as a government program was extremely successful. Shockingly, because the government does nothing right. But they kicked themselves in the with the provision in the CARES Act with extending unemployment benefits the way they did, and then giving a kicker to some of those states, which is essentially what it is. I don't care what the naysayers and the cheerleaders for the shutdown try to spin it. You incentivized people to stay home. And it took a toll because the money got to these people. It got to them. Take their word for it. You'll see. They're going to tell you right now what the problem is. 2 things. 1, they think the economy is going to be shut down again, or the reopening is not going quick enough. They see the handwriting on the wall with the Democrats, and they see it. And it's working. Some people have caved already. Let's get real, folks. Roy Cooper caved in North Carolina, although he's a Democrat, and he's dying to do that. He wants to try to cost Trump the state of North Carolina. All right, but even Republicans, Abbott, you caved a little bit, buddy. You caved. Kristi Noem is the only rock star during this. DeSantis did a good job too. Oh my God, didn't so many people die? They're 8th per capita in the country, and they have the highest population of people, elderly people. There should have been far more deaths in the state of Florida. He never even fully locked down. Small business owners lowered their 6-month outlet amid concerns the economy is not fully reopening quickly enough. The percentage expecting better business conditions in the next 6 months declined 14 points to a net 25%. And let's listen to what Bill, who is the chief economist at NFIB, he says, quote, "This summer has been challenging for many small business owners who are working hard to keep their doors open and remain in business. Small business represents nearly half of the GDP, gross domestic product. And this month we saw a dip in optimism. There is still plenty of work to be done to get business back to pre-crisis numbers." So wait a minute. You're telling me, and I should start naming names. Is Glenn here with us today? I know he wants me to. We should start naming names. You're telling me these people were wrong? These Trump cheerleaders were wrong? Oh my God. You mean it wasn't all going to magically snap back after you turn the supply chains off for weeks and weeks out of the year, for 2 months? And you told employees to go home. You told businesses to shut their doors. You gave them money to shut their doors. You gave them money to stay home. Are you telling me it wasn't going to just pop right back out of nowhere? The net for hiring plans. Hey, Glenn. I mean, look, they were wrong, man. Right? Isn't it time they mea culpa that? Isn't it time for them to say, I led you all astray. The net for hiring plans over the next 3 months came in at a seasonally adjusted 18%, up 2 points from June and 17 percentage points higher than in April. However, too many workers have not yet returned to work. The generous unemployment benefits provided by the CARES Act only expired in July. Further, 21% cited, ready? Finding qualified labor as their top business concern. 37% of these people were in construction. I'm sure he's like, whatever you're doing is making Laura crack up. And I will say this, the only reason why sometimes, folks, I don't mention names is because it is actually a tactic to get somebody who's got more, to like piggyback it. So if you can pick a fight with somebody and get into like a street, I would be helping certain people if I was to engage in it, because in the end they get to say, oh, I'm in the mud with so-and-so. And then, you guys will watch it to see what they say about me. And it'll be this big back and forth. Look, it can be fun. It's funny, but I don't really want to help them. You know what I'm saying? Like they led people astray. And I'm not talking about one person. I'm talking about multiple people. Multiple people. You misled people, including the president, by the way, because sometimes the president will take a last breath. He'll step back before he really does. His gut was to tell him not to shut this economy down, not to give the CDC and the coronavirus task force the green light to provide cover for Democratic governors and mayors. That was what his gut was telling him. And sometimes the last refuge for him is Twitter. And when you got half his base cheerleading because they're told to do whatever, they're told to cheerlead, then you screw him. You screwed him. You helped screw him. If you support someone, the best thing you could ever do for them is to tell them when they're wrong. If you care about their success and the success of the country, you tell them when the policy is bad for the country. Constructive criticism. Oh my God, I think that word was like phased out with year 2 Common Core. You're not allowed to do that anymore. It's what we used to call it, constructive criticism. Again, let me repeat this though. The generous unemployment benefits provided by the CARES Act only expired in July. So this survey is for the month of July. So let's hope for a little bit better news in August, because if he does it, look, first of all, if we don't get it, there's going to be a chronic long-term unemployment problem. Second of all, if Donald Trump doesn't get it, he's going to lose. All right. Further, 21% of small business owners responding to the survey cited finding qualified labor as their top business concern. 37% of them were in the construction business. Folks, did you not see the JOLTS report the other day? There are plenty of jobs. Hiring fell, albeit to the second highest level ever. It still fell, and it could have been booming like the month of June and like May. It fell, though, even though openings increased. Separations increased. That's not good. All right. If you guys read PPD on the daily, then you looked at that report. The jobs are there. These are small business owners saying people don't want to come back to work. They're collecting their unemployment benefits and they don't want to come back to work. Why the hell would you? Why would you? Why would you go back to work and risk catching the most deadly disease ever, when you could just get unemployment benefits? Go ahead.
I just wanted to say a prime example is my girlfriend's sister. She works for a restaurant and she can't even get servers to come back because they're making more money sitting at home collecting than they do at work.
That's absolutely what is going on. You can see it in the numbers. In the JOLTS report, they actually cite leisure and hospitality. I mean, and we're going to look at that in a minute when we go to the Census Bureau. Okay. We're going to look specifically how bad they were. And if you guys remember the last time we showed you this survey, you'll be able to compare the impact. What I like about this survey is it specifically asks, has the consequences of the impact, the impact. What have the consequences been? Positive, negative, extremely positive, extremely negative. And we were headed in the right direction last month. And now you'll see where we are again. The percentage of small business owners reporting capital outlays, that is plans to spend. Capital outlays are very, very important. It's like CapEx. They're going to spend money to expand. They're going to hire. They're going to get more equipment. And there are different categories, and I'll read them to you here. It's very important. That's a 1 point increase. It's 49%. That's strong. That says they want to spend it. They want to expand. They want to grow. They want to fuel the economy. But they can't because they can't find anybody to work. Of those, 33% reported spending on new equipment, 21 acquired vehicles, 13 improved or expanded existing facilities, 6% or 5 acquired new buildings or land for expansion, 10% spent money for new fixtures and furniture, 26% are planning capital outlays in the next few months. Only 3% of small business owners say their borrowing needs were not met. And 35% reported all their credit needs were met. 51% have no interest or need a loan, while just 2% net reported it was harder to obtain a loan than it was previously. That is success. That is indicative of a successful program. The PPP worked, folks. It worked, but it doesn't matter if there's nobody there to go back to work. It doesn't matter. Let's look at the census thing. Bear with me for a hot minute here, folks, okay? Bear with me because I really, where are you? I had both of them up because I wanted to show you. If you guys remember, when they first ran this survey, the national average for people who said they had been affected by the coronavirus pandemic, all right, had blown up. It was like 80%, 8 in 10. We had dipped all the way down to the 20s, all right? And then I'm going to show you where we are now. We'll take a look at the percentage of people who are saying they have a large negative impact, moderate negative impact, little or no, and then the percentage of who says, to varying degrees that they have a positive impact. And actually, let me make sure I get industries here. Where's the sector? Oh, there it is. All right, here we go. Pull it up. This is called the Small Business Pulse Survey, okay? If you guys have not or do not remember it. All right. Small Business Pulse Survey. You probably can't see it that well. I'll zoom in a little bit. To the left, you will see the map. All right. State by state map. Survey question is overall impact. If you guys go and check it in YouTube, there's a link to this. If you guys want to follow along, you can click on the link. I think it's the very last link. Take it and it'll bring you here. It's interactive. It's incredible. You can look at the overall impact, change in revenues, temporary closings, change in employees, change in employee hours, supply chain. You can look detail at that and you will see the disruption. You will clearly see the disruption that was so freaking predictable. I was pulling my hair out arguing with people that this ever would not have an impact on the supply chain. Clearly, people who never worked a day in their life in the real world or private sector. Clearly, come on. I don't mean to bash on anybody, but you could not be that blind unless you are somebody who basically lives in a or like the political world or the media class. I mean, they don't really get impacted by recessions the way that we do. Media is having problems, a lot of layoffs in media, but that's their own damn fault. I mean, they'll tell you that it's a Great Recession, but there actually were bump ups after the Great Recession. They've suffered a long 3 years. All right. Shift to other goods, services, pick up, carry out, delivery, cash on hand, miss loans. You can look at that, miss other payments, required assistance, etc. We're going to look at the overall impact. To hell with the map. If you guys want to play around with it, you can look. By the way, North Dakota, 10.3% lower than the national average. Nebraska, 4.3. Look at North Dakota, 7.5 lower. Look at Texas, only 2.4% lower, even though, right? This is, they don't see the overall. Okay. Here's the national. We're back to 37.7 again. That's going in the wrong direction. That is the wrong direction. Here is other services. Where are you? Accommodation and food services. There's what Laura was just talking about. 70.5%. That's almost back to the height of the pandemic. That's like 15 points away. All right. Art, entertainment, recreation, still almost 7 and 10. And then the third, come on, stop. That's high charts. Love high charts. But educational services, about almost 6 and 10 at 59.1%. This is what I love about this survey, though. You can actually parse out mining, quarrying, oil and gas extraction. I'm a little bit, something gets me, I don't know. Something is like, I know that the questions are tailored to the pandemic, but specifically with oil, we had a price fallout, a complete collapse in the price of oil before the pandemic hit. All right. And I'm wondering if these numbers aren't inflated a little bit because it's like they're blaming the pandemic for structural problems that were already in. I know mining and quarrying is in there as well, but oil and gas extraction, you can't just throw it all in the pandemic. There were problems before. If everybody remembers, oil was trading in negative territory. That was pre-pandemic. The fall, the drop itself began pre-pandemic, and we're already a 20% cut in trading oil prices for like Brent crude or WTI. That's bad enough. That's a crisis. That is a crisis of share price already. And then you had this happen. So it was just a triple whammy. So I'm not saying there's not problems there. And it's not, but what I'm saying is I think that really we're looking at exacerbating the problem that was already there as opposed to it. Transportation and warehousing. Pretty important. That would be the supply chains, 44.7%. Again, this was down on the last two. This is directly the result of hitting the pause button on reopenings. It's directly the result of that. And it's a real damn shame, folks. Real damn shame. Overall, how has this business been affected by the COVID-19 pandemic? I hate that question. It should be overall. How has this business been affected by the government's response to the COVID-19 pandemic? That should be the question. Anyway, moderately negative. This is one silver lining that I found in the results of the survey this morning. Moderate negative effect is 45%, where large negative effect is 37.7%. It was a lot worse before. So when you take the combined negative, it still sucks. But at least it's not so lopsided in the intensity of totally negative. All right, hold on. Let's get you in here. You got a question?
Yes, I have a question. Do you think that question was worded that way to manipulate people when it comes time? As a pollster, you would kind of know this. So
I think we're already manipulated to talk about it in these terms. Like we're blaming a virus when we should be blaming ourselves. It was our decisions that caused these problems. It was not the virus itself. Never in the history of the world has a government ever told commerce that it had to stop and pause. We've had quarantines. Quarantines are for sick people. We have never had lockdowns where the stated goal was to first slow the spread of whatever virus there was, then stop it. And now all of a sudden the goal is to make sure there's not a virus particle existing in the society. It's crazy. Of course, it's unrealistic. I don't think that they're trying to manipulate anybody. I think what it reflects is we've already been manipulated into talking about it in this manner. That question should not read, overall, how has this business been affected by the COVID-19 pandemic? The question should be, overall, how has this business been affected by the mitigation efforts, whatever it may be, by the government response to the COVID-19 pandemic, to the decision by the government, the lockdowns to slow the spread of the COVID-19 pandemic? There are myriad ways to answer this question in a more honest fashion. But I think the people at the Census Bureau have, like everybody else, they're being manipulated into speaking about it like this. Language matters. And we'll talk about that tomorrow too with Robert Barnes, by the way. Language matters. How they changing and using these terms and how we frame discussion can drive an entire debate, of course. And we very rarely think about that when we engage in them, right? What framed the structure of this debate, which, folks, is what we get. We need to have a whole episode on the construct, because that's what all of that is about. It can be something as simple as the changing of language to actual bureaucracies, but the entire point is to perpetuate the status quo or the people in the status quo, because those people are powerful and they don't want to lose that. They have interests, and those interests come before your interests. And that's it. All right. So it's 11 to, yeah, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll look at some geographical stuff. Okay. But, and answer some questions. Yes, Laura will answer some questions. All right, folks, don't forget, before we hit this break, don't forget to subscribe to the page, People's Pundit Daily on YouTube. Don't forget to like the page on Facebook, People's Pundit Daily, same thing. And the best way, of course, to support the show is to subscribe to People's Pundit Daily, which you can do by going to ppdnews.us /just subscribe. ppdnews.us /subscribe. All right. I'll be back in 2 minutes, folks. Thanks for watching Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. I am the People's Pundit, Rich Barris. Follow me on Twitter at @peoples_pundit.
How much you wanna bet that I can get you back inside your head before the summer ends and spread a little love. Just for a little fun, I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be, I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker, you're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Rhythm in our love, it's impressive, excessive. You can't make this stuff up. My chest beats, it's restless, wakes the neighbors up above. Yeah, baby, come and show me love. Baby, come and show me love, because you're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
We can get on a plane and take a one-way ride, steal us away to find a place we can hide. It wouldn't take much to spear for overnight, just to give in to the need and leave it all behind.
'Cause I know that you know that I know that you own me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. 'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. You're gonna be a heartbreaker, you're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. You're gonna be a heartbreaker, you're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
All right, welcome back to Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. I am the People's Pundit, Rich Barris. You can follow me on Twitter at @peoples_pundit. And look, folks, I forgot to say before, thanks for the new subscribers, both to YouTube and on PPD. We love you guys for it. Viewership gaining every day. We'll get there. We'll get there. It's good stuff. So this is by geography, and I want to answer a question first when we do handle questions, just to let them know that I'm listening to it. So Ward, something. Anyway, Rich, a question about the House. All right. And specifically when we were talking about voters punishing parties for breaking promises. And that's a great question, because I know what the betting odds say. You look at the House, I think that, honestly, a total joke. I think there are some incumbent Democrats that are just in deep, deep trouble. They're in deep trouble. They promised they wouldn't support impeachment. They promised they wouldn't be radical. Many of them promised they wouldn't even support Nancy Pelosi. And yet here we are, right? But this is back to the Small Business Pulse survey by the Census Bureau. This is by the overall impact versus outlook. And you can clearly see Abbott, definitely put some people in some bad spots. It's interesting though. If you guys want to take a look at it, Jacksonville, Florida, by the way, where Trump wanted to hold his renomination, very low on the totem pole, considering. So all of the, hatred of DeSantis, Salt Lake City, Utah, another one low on the totem pole. Richmond, Virginia, you'll notice, also very low on the totem pole, because those people will survive regardless of what they tell you to do with themselves. Okay? Cuomo hurting a lot of people there. You can see it to the far right. High impact zone. Not in a good look. Not a good look for him. All right, but it's obvious. And that's the sum total of that. So let's move on from that. Get to some of your questions, because tomorrow, folks, we're doing this at 10. Let me just announce it right now. We're doing this at 10 tomorrow. I want to get us back to our 10 a.m. slot, okay? I like the 10 a.m. slot. From polling, you guys, I don't make any decisions without it being data-driven, and we did extensive research on starting a new podcast. The 10 a.m. to noon slot won, and it won pretty handily. And then the second one was a lot of you wanted me to take Brett Baer's time slot. But we went with the 10 a.m. because that's when stuff's happening. That's when economic indicators are coming out. Sometimes we did bump it back so I could get those economic indicators. Nothing goes on PPD without me looking. All right. So basically, that's it. So where is this? Let me go back here. Did I already? Okay. Richard Water, and bear with me, asked this really good question. It's 4 tweets long. He says, "Hey, Rich, I have a question about the House and what appears to always be a one-sided punishment." Reject that. Thank you. So thank you. She rejected it. "Hey, Rich, I have a question about the House and what appears to always be a one-sided punishment by the people. Before the 2018 election, you had said the Republicans would be punished because they failed to deliver on the promises they made the people by dealing with Obamacare. And I believe to some degree the massive spending and lack of wall appropriation." I would agree with you, Richard, on that. Those low propensity voters that supported Donald Trump were immigration trade voters, lots of them, and what we called culture, way of life voters, right? Also, the Dems took back the House on their promises to healthcare, which was a big issue for people. My question is, why would Dems be treated better and rewarded with keeping the House when the only thing they did and failed at was impeachment? Why, in your opinion, are Dems always rewarded with being the default vote for people no matter what they do, and Republicans always being punished, and rightly so, I might add, when they failed to deliver on a campaign promise? I guess I'm always blown away at seeing everything the left can get away with. And even though the Republicans may not deserve control, the Dems should be mightily punished for doing nothing while in control and helping push the destruction of our Constitution with these riots. That is, a fantastic question. It really is. Part of the answer to that question is the media handicap. All right. This is what I mean by the media handicap. And it's not the end all be all, because I do still think that Democrats get punished. It just depends on how much people understand the no before. And that's the job of the opposing party, to make that case. Now, the media stands ready to spin this stuff to help them. So Democrats don't, I guess some of the answer to this is Democrats don't have to work as hard to make their case. They have the entire media apparatus. They have entertainment. Now, apparently, they have sports. There's like nowhere Americans can go where the handicap is not on full display. You'd be watching a movie, right? On Stars or whatever. I'm not picking on Stars. I'm just saying. And you'll see some, even with channel scheduling and with programming scheduling, you'll see movies that run at a shockingly appropriate times that help their narrative, right? They have the handicap everywhere they go, and Republicans have to work extra hard. Now, in 2018, one of the big things that hurt them, and Russia did hurt them too, that fraud absolutely helped on the peripheral. It did. It killed Dana Rohrabacher. It killed others who aligned with Trump. Sessions in Texas, Pete Sessions, it hurt him, even though Pete Sessions was just trying to get to the truth. But he was digging into Marie Yovanovitch. And they targeted him for it. David Bratt. They targeted him too. They got their deep state Democrat candidates to run against them in most of these districts. Virginia 7's a great example. And they had the media handicap to help them. Republicans have to work extra hard to give people a reason to vote. And the second element to that in 2018, John McCain and Paul Ryan killed them. I am thoroughly convinced that the Republicans could have at least fought it to like a single seat draw had McCain not sabotaged the vote on Obamacare, the skinny repeal of Obamacare in the Senate. Because what he did was make it impossible for Republicans to argue that the repeal would not have still preserved protections for pre-existing conditions. There was no way. It was killing them everywhere. Everywhere we tested it, it was killing them. Even Republican women were pissed that Republicans were going to take away protections for pre-existing conditions. Of course, that was not true. But you can't argue a hypothetical. When McCain killed it, and I put blame on Paul Ryan for the simple fact that he was a liar, and he said that they had a consensus bill. They did not. They never did. It was really when he said that, and I believe it was Hannity that he told that first. When he said he had a consensus bill, what he meant was that he had something that he already ran by his benefactors. And they were cool with that. And most of the Tuesday group, which is a bunch of moderates beholden to the Chamber of Commerce, so-called moderates beholden to the Chamber of Commerce, they were cool with it. But they never picked up the phone and called Jim Jordan or Mark Meadows or Andy Biggs. They didn't speak to any of those guys to say, are you guys cool with it? You're the most conservative caucus in the House. You have the votes to stop us. Are you all right with this bill? They didn't do it because Paul Ryan didn't give a damn what they thought. He thought he'd be able to railroad it through. And he couldn't. And then when he couldn't, we got left with the skinny repeal. That's all they could get through. And John McCain killed it because John McCain was a bitter old man. There's it's no more complicated than that. And it was impossible for Republicans to go back to their district and say, had we passed this bill, we would have preserved pre-existing conditions. The ads were everywhere. And they were not true. These ads were not true. The media helped them, by the way. They reinforced. Yeah, that's right. They reinforced those lies. They really, what Laura's saying is they kind of reversed the argument. You can keep your plan. You can keep your doctor. They reversed that argument on Republicans, and there was no way. And then you had the New York Times, the New York Slimes, or whatever you want to call them, and the Post lying for them. Greg Sargent takes his cues from Democrats. He is literally handed a piece of paper what to write. They slapped the word analysis before the title of his blog, his glorified blog, because that's all it is over there. And everything you'll read out of somebody like Greg Sargent was fed to him hook, line, and sinker by the Democratic Party. He is a huge handicapper. He's been doing it for you. He did it with the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. Does it ever matter that these people are wrong? No. It just keeps going. So that what I'm saying is Republicans need to work extra hard to make the case that Democrats deserve to be punished. I can tell you folks, there is still a huge number of people who don't know that Russia was fake. It's like a daily basis that I have to tell people, everyday people, that Russia was a fraud. These are not like, hyper political people. They're not like us. They don't know it. Republicans haven't been doing a good job of telling them that it was a fraud. Hell, half of these Republicans helped push that crap. Let's be real, folks. Let's be real. The new chairman of the Senate Intelligence Committee, in case you missed it last week, I went on a rant about Marco Rubio. Guy's a total joke. Now he cares about voter fraud. He only cares about voter fraud because Big Sugar lost the race in 2018 for agricultural commissioner. While we were all talking about, You should do something about this while you have control of every single branch of the government. You should probably address this very important issue. They were too busy pushing and perpetuating the lie that Donald Trump colluded with the Russian government. So they're not giving voters a reason to vote for them, and they're not making the case that Democrats should be punished for lying to them about all this stuff. Hell, folks, the top pick for Joe Biden right now was a huge collusion truther. Susan Rice knew she was lying to everyone when she was on those shows over the last 3 years, or 2 years period, telling everybody that Donald Trump, that the intelligence suggested, Michael Flynn was this and Donald Trump. We've been over this, and I'll go over it again. But you don't hear Mitch McConnell make the case. You don't hear Lindsey Graham make that case. You don't hear these people make that case. Tom Tillis got a very tough race here in North Carolina. He's in trouble. He's re-embraced Donald Trump. I think he probably will eke it out in the end, because I think Donald Trump's going to carry the state of North Carolina by about 5 points, probably, as it stands right now. I think the polls are wrong. They're going to be wrong. They are wrong all the time in North Carolina. They're almost always wrong, have been for 3 cycles. But Tillis spent 2 years afraid of Robert Mueller. So I don't know why everyone's surprised he's got a tough race. Now, there are some people doing a good job, and that puts people, and we spoke about him yesterday, didn't we? Connor Lamb's in trouble. In a district, they redrew for him to make it easy for him to hold on to it after he defeated Rick Sanchez in what was previously a red-leaning district. It wouldn't have mattered if Rick Sanchez won that special election, because in the end, Rick Sanchez would not have been able to hold on to that. All right. So, some of this is individual race levels, and some of it is a national effort. I would argue right now that there's no doubt Democrats are going to lose some seats. They're not going to gain some seats unless something drastically changed. I mean, there's always some seats that come out of left field you don't see, but they won a lot of seats within margins of errors. And they took often in some, especially when we're talking about California, they took weeks to be able to do it. Mike Garcia's seat, the one he won, is more Democrat leaning than a handful of the other seats out there in California. What I'm saying is, like, Dana Rohrabacher's seat, old seat, it is not as liberal as California 25. And yet, Democrats, Harley Ruda was able to win it by a hair, a fraction. It was a D plus 10 mood almost. And there were about 35,000 Republican women missing from the electorate. Why? I could tell you, because we polled the race. And Glenn, you know this. We polled this race. They believe that Russia crap, especially in the last few weeks. Bloomberg's money killed him. And they did that to a lot of people ever. So I don't really get this argument like Democrats are going to add. But to answer Rich's question, Republicans have to work extra hard. They do get punished. They didn't listen on Obamacare, and they got punished for it. Republicans didn't listen on Obamacare, and they got punished for it. The media handicap, however, was not as strong in 2010 as it is now. And for that matter, it was not as strong in 2014 or 2016, even though 16 was basically out of control. We're in a whole new era. We're in an anything goes era. And it's dangerous. It's sad. But that is the reality of it. All right. So I hope that answers your question, Rich. I would just say, don't let it be a foregone conclusion that Republicans won't take the House back. I think that would be a big disaster to make. If Trump gets over the hurdle of COVID, and he's got to, if he gets over the coronavirus hurdle, and then and he can get this economy going again better than it is now. Because while I can show you V's till the cows come home, there are many, and housing is trying to drag us into a full stage recovery. If that happens, and I do believe this race, even in public polls, will tighten. I'm just not sure Donald Trump could ever lead in some of these public polls. I just don't think the way they do their methodology, their collection modes, they're never going to show strong approval of him. They're never going to show him leading Biden nationally. It's just, Fox News, ABC, Washington Post is another one. CBS YouGov, that's another one. They're never going to show Trump up. The way who they poll, their collection modes are terrible. And that's why you saw, while even some of them were close with the House vote, they were abysmal with the state votes. Go look at CBS YouGov on their battleground tracker with the Senate races and the gubernatorial contests. They were way off, folks. Way off. Even when they favored Braun, they favored him by tops 3 points. All right. Fox News thought Braun was going to, their poll, Braun was down. He was down by 7 points. He won. He won by 6. It's a huge miss. Huge miss. All right. And by the way, even going back to 2014, because I did see some questions about North Carolina. Going back to 2014, Kay Hagan had a lead upwards of 15 points in North Carolina in 2014. It tightened at the very end. The final poll was still Hagan plus 7. The only one that showed Tom Tillis up was Harper, which is a Republican polling firm. Lastly on this, the Terrence Group, which worked with Georgetown to put out that poll yesterday with Georgetown University, is not really a Republican. They are, and I know, a lot of candidates who have used them, working for candidates myself. Terrence is, they poll for John James. They are a very establishment Republican polling firm. They are not friends of Donald Trump, all right? And I have clients who have come to us and we got horrible numbers, horrible. It's just the Republican side, their pollsters, they have some good ones. Remington, it's run by Jeff, I believe. That was a solid polling outfit. They're not doing anything public this year, but there's only a handful. And honestly, the polling firms that are better on the right tend to be more conservative, not establishment guys. And they're out-of-the-box thinkers. And unfortunately, they're just not making the contribution, and we're left with what we're left with, all right? And I would also caution everybody, when everybody starts polling these houses, these races in the House, you're talking about very small electorates. And the district fatigue in 2018 was really bad. Normally, it's just me in there polling for a client or a group or whatever it may be, polling for ourselves, an election model, whatever we're doing. And there's not many. It's like everyone and their mother in 2118 was polling these districts. You can't do that in a district with 150,000 people, 250,000 people. It's crazy. You just can't. Blows it all over the place. All right, Laura, let's get some questions. Let me mute me so you can read a question. Go ahead.
Just so you know, Richard said thank you. I know you said you're most welcome. I get it. All right, Lamp Crow, he has 2 questions. I don't know why I associate Lamp as a female, but I do. Kamala, I know, sorry if you're a guy. Kamala and Warren already have designated convention speaking slots. Could this mean they're basically out of the running for Veep? Number 2, what is the originating root of the media handicap? Why doesn't New York Times have a right-wing bias, for example?
That's a great 2-part question, really. The first one I can answer really easily and quickly, which is not necessarily. There are a lot of head fakes that go into the Veepstakes, all right? And just because Kamala has a slot does not mean they won't change it up. Sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. I'm just saying there is a lot of head faking going on. It always happens. But again, before I wanted to come on today and talk about this, I sent a lot of emails out. I made a lot of inquiries, and the general consensus is that Susan Rice is the leader in the Veepstakes right now. Okay, it was Harris. It was. And then there was a revolt, right? And, I almost think either one of them, maybe they will gin up black turnout from people like, P. Diddy and whatnot pushing it. I don't think I really see that yet. I just don't. Biden is performing extraordinarily weak with the overall black electorate. I've seen that happen before. Only to consolidate later. It's just that his strength is not coming from minorities. His strength is coming from white voters that are either newer voters or voters that are swing voters. Excuse me, hiccups, at least for now. But yeah, I wouldn't put too much stock in that, although Warren is out. She's out. All right. I can tell you that. Or at least that's what we hear. All right. But yeah, the second part of the question, the origination of it, there's a long history here. And it really goes to ownership, how these papers change hands years and years and years ago. What we now know to be the New York Times was the conservative paper, all right, in New York. Years. I'm talking about many years ago. And that the New York Post was actually the liberal version. And now the New York Post is right wing. They weren't called that back then. But over time, things evolve, things change. Over the years, for the same reason that somebody like an AOC can get elected, even when you look at MSNBC, the management that's changed at MSNBC, the new management didn't believe that MSNBC was left-wing enough. I'm not kidding. So the coverage you saw during the collusion narrative, the Mueller probe, that is old management. And the new management believes that they weren't left-wing enough during that. Times have changed. Liberals are getting more liberal. They're not even liberals anymore. I mean, it's flat out. These are straight up socialists and communists. They'll tell you privately. It's not a secret, and they believe in a different form of journalism. They don't believe in traditional journalism. They believe that it's their role to help the Democratic Party. They do. I mean, that's it. And the New York Times, look at the resignation letter from the opinion editor that was that 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago. We went over it on the show. And she does a great job explaining how this has evolved over the years and the environment and the culture and the intolerance and even flat abuse, like workplace abuse. These are rabid ideologues. And while they have always had an ideology, they put their profession first for many, many years. Now it's totally gone off the rails. Donald Trump did one thing, if he ever did one, when he didn't do just one thing. But if you ever give him credit for anything, it's pulling the mask off of them. And then they view him as such a threat to the order that they view their role to get rid of him. And, honestly, and I know this sounds crazy, but honestly, Don King explained this the best. He really did. Why they hate Donald Trump so much. It really isn't much to do with, with the stuff they bring up, the issues and what. That's not why they decided to engage in like activism instead of journalism. It's because this little system, this little order is built for him. People like him. You're not really ever supposed to get ahead, folks. That's crap. Okay. Newsflash, or spoiler alert, whatever we're going to call it. They're full of it. All right. They don't care about you. They don't care about me. They don't care about the working man, the working woman. They don't think nurses are heroes. They don't think doctors are warriors on the front lines. It's all a load of horse crap. They want to preserve the status quo. And someone like Donald Trump, who spent his life mingling with liberals and basically playing the game, giving to whoever he needed to give to, greasing whoever's palms he needed to grease, is not allowed to decide, you know what? I think this group of people in society is getting the shaft. I am going to run and make their life better. You're not allowed to do that. They hate him for that crap. You're not allowed to do it. Especially since, by the way, even if some were inclined to say that's a noble thing, he's a white man, and that's it. And I unless you spend time in academia a little bit, maybe some of you, some of you have, some of you haven't. It takes like time. You have to be around them to fully understand it. And Laura used to say all the time, it's a freaking mental disorder. It's a mental disorder, and I'd be like, no, Laura, it's just, look, we did. So, it's just their way of life. It's just their worldview. I don't know anymore, folks. I don't know anymore. I think she's right. It's probably some form of a mental disorder. The bottom line is they're true ideologues, and that goes for these journalists. They are true ideologues. That supplants a belief system that most Americans, whether you're on the right, it doesn't really matter. I mean, if you're a middle American who lives in flyover country, you have a belief system, your family, your faith, and that is core to you, and that's the basis for your way of life. These people have two things: their ideology and their ambition. And that comes first. So if you understand that, then you can understand how they decided to change the role and nature of journalism. And then that handicap is stronger than it used to be because it's more overt. And they don't view, like when Democrats got wiped out in 2016, they made the decision that they were going to be the opposition party. Steve Bannon was absolutely right about that. Democrats are down and out. It's our job, it's our duty, it's our role to prevent them from advancing their agenda, meaning the Trump administration and Republicans. It will be our role since Democrats are so weak. And they did it. That's it. I mean, it's the very beginning. If you look at history, sadly, it's the very beginning of an alliance of a political class that thought they were in control. And then once that control was yanked from them, like Americans gave them a gut check and they said, silly rabbits, tricks are for kids, we were in control. We want something. We want to make a change. We want to move in another direction. They flipped out and they're going to protect that at all costs. Even if that means making up a story like your president is a traitor who colluded with the Russian government to interfere with the damn election. Not that they just got their asses kicked, but Donald Trump is a traitor who colluded with the Russian government to steal an election from you. They had no problem telling that lie. And that's the alliance that exists today. The media's job is to do the handicap. Even the intel community, their role is to make the narrative. I mean, they're basically dark arting you. And then they're going to help their party that's in power who will, once they get elected, affect that change or reinstill the status quo or even take down the institutions and the norms and the safeguards that you have. And that's really what this is all about because they can't let this happen again, folks. They cannot let this happen again. I mean, really, that's a good question. I've thought a lot about this. You have to convince, first of all, you got to stop supporting them and you have to support alternative media. And I'm not saying that because we have a role in alternative media. You can't support them, not with their view, not with clicks, not with views. And they still get a ton of support. Let's be real. I mean, the New York Times' subscriptions have blown up under Donald Trump. Even though they lied to their first, before 2016, they lied to their readers about the state of the election. They did not cover it well, and had they done their job, maybe they would have saw the forgotten man and women coming from the left hook, but they never saw it, and they duped their readers into thinking that it was a shoo-in. Hillary was going to be the next Madam President. They lied to themselves and to their readers. Then they lied and won Pulitzers about Russia, and for all of this, they got rewarded with more subscriptions and more ad revenue. So that's number one. And number two, you really have to be the people who understand that the media is not only that they're not only liars, but they're activist liars. Their intention is to deceive you. This has to become like a conversation you have with your neighbors, with your family, with your friends, this has to be something that becomes acceptable. We were talking about how language has changed. Trump was genius when he spun fake news around on them. But then, once one man a revolution doesn't make, his movement needs to help him. Really, that's it. It has to help him do this stuff. And unfortunately, there are a lot of them who just rely on him to do everything for them and then also are unwilling to tell him when he is wrong. So it's not been as effective as it has been. Now, yeah, you guys, and I'm looking at some of the comments, you guys understand what their role is. You do. But everyday Americans who are just like, sitting in the doctor's office watching CNN or something, or, waiting at the airport for a flight and they're forced to watch CNN, they're not as political as we are. So some of this doesn't inform the decision. And many Americans are idealistic. We are an idealistic country. And a lot of their instinct is to say, they wouldn't lie to us over something this serious. I mean, I get this all the time. Would they really? Would they really? You know? Yeah, they lied to you about your president being a Russian traitor. I mean, if they're willing to do something like that, then there's nothing that you could take at face value from these people. And by the way, I mean, there were New York Times journalists, Maggie Haberman, talking to you. You helped them lie, and you helped them cover key facts, like the Democrats paid for smear opposition research. It was not an intelligence document. And they know how to drip this stuff out and obfuscate the timeline. It's totally intentional, completely intentional. So you can't support them. That's it. And you got to make a bigger effort so people understand. The industry is taking, as far as the labor market, Laura, we do the Challenger job cut report from Challenger Gray and Christmas. You can see for yourself how bad the media has taken a hit. But there's also, too, another element to this. The left is willing to spend money. The right wants a profit. They're capitalists. The left is willing to spend and waste money on propaganda to push narratives because they're ideologues. So they are willing to watch millions and millions or billions go down the drain if it means advancing their ideology. The right is not willing to do that. The middle and the right, they are not willing to do that. And then also, one more thing, they got to stop talking about censorship. How the media does this, they have a bias. Social media has censorship. Folks, what they do is more akin to an in-kind campaign contribution. They provide a service without compensation for free to a political campaign or committee. That is an in-kind campaign contribution, and they are illegal in this country. So if it's overt, it has to become something like that judge said about porn, Laura. You know, it's hard to define, right? Hardcore porn, it's hard to define, but you know it when you see it. It has to become like that. It really does. And the FEC should start doing their damn job. These are in-kind campaign contributions. These are not like, oh, we lean this way or we lean that way. This is way beyond that now. All right, I'm going to kill my mic. What's the next one, Laura?
All right. Did you answer the one from whatchamacallit? What's his name? Oh my goodness. Sir, there it is. How long of a time span do we need to get the economy over the re-election metric line? And how long do we have?
Yeah, so this is it. This is it. In August, we better start seeing some numbers rebound, or else it's likely that it will be much slower because economic activity during the summer tends to heat up, and then you'll start to go into the holiday shopping season. The problem is consumers will not go gangbuster right before that holiday shopping season, and then people will vote and votes will be counted before the Thanksgiving shopping season kicks into play. So, and then by the way, in September, which is why Barnes and I were talking about using the month of August to raise money. Our biggest fear is that we start crowdfunding this poll and then the money dries up and we can't make it to November without spending basically thousands and thousands of our own money. That's our biggest fear. So we thought if we used the month of August, for two reasons why that would work. It would give us a little bit of a head start. And then also September is when people will start paying attention, folks. I mean, late August, September, they will start paying attention. In some states in Minnesota, how early they get to vote saved Hillary Clinton from losing that state. The people who decided after, and the amount of early voter remorse. Remember when I fact-checked Dana Perino last week? The amount of early voter remorse in Wisconsin and Minnesota was unbelievably high. So they had cast their ballots already, and it was already gone and couldn't take it back. Those people will start voting. You have till August for this economy to turn around. You got the end of July. These benefits ran out. Now we're in August. There is some encouraging data to suggest from jobless claims that the ending of the extended benefits is starting to take is starting to have an impact. So it's reversing. We saw jobless claims start to fall again. The insured unemployment rate started to go down, but then it started to tick back up as people weren't reopening and people got scared and they said, I can collect these benefits a little bit longer. I think I'll do so. That there was some encouraging numbers last week, but we need more than that. It can't be next week. Like if Thursday rolls around, Laura, and those claims tick back up significantly, it's a problem. It's a problem. So to really answer that question, what is today? August 11th. You got 3 weeks to make a big change. I'm not kidding. You got 3 weeks to at least start going in the right direction.
I like Richard's comment. He said, COVID ain't going to stop me from going to the polling location. But he would like to know, what do you think of Trump's executive order? And what's the percent that you would give Trump today to win?
So I'll be honest. Let me mute. I'll be honest. I do think that a few of those orders, because there's actually a number of them. So he said he'll extend some of the pay. He's going to do the payroll tax cut. He's going to extend some of the benefits, right? I think they're pretty much unconstitutional. I think you could say at least. But what he's doing is daring Democrats to sue him over it. And it's genius because it would be incredibly stupid. You know, the R word, which I don't like to say because I don't like to mock, but it would be like mentally handicapped to try to challenge him on this. He's providing Americans relief. So they're not really going to care whether or not these executive orders are constitutional or not. They're caring about their economic survival right now. Just like, by the way, Democrats didn't give a damn. Some of those criticisms were ridiculous. Where were you people when Obama said almost over 24 times that he did not have the constitutional authority to implement DACA himself? There was a stalemate in Congress, and he said, I'm going to act. I got a pen. I got a phone. Remember that, folks? Nobody gave a damn about that. Now you care because it's Donald Trump, and he's doing something politically genius. And because of the Supreme Court decision on DACA, they gave a president incredible leeway to do unconstitutional executive orders because it's now going to be so hard to roll them back even if they were unconstitutional. That is what Chief Justice Roberts effectively did when he didn't uphold DACA. What he says is the way Trump went about reversing Obama's order was incorrect, and he's got to go back to the drawing board. All right, which they intend to do. And so I think the orders were politically genius, though I do think they're unconstitutional. And I will say on his chances of reelection, the truth is, until we get to that Labor Day mark, a little bit after, actually, we really can't answer that. If pre-COVID, I would have told you Donald Trump was the odds-on favorite. GDP is GDP. And there are certain indicators that, without fail, will predict elections. All right? And presidential approval rating is not as strong as some of these indicators, even though it is very strong with senatorial races and stuff. There's a strong relationship there. I would have put his chances at 70% or greater. He's going to win. I don't care what his approval rating is in the NBC poll. However, there's many things that are happening that are unprecedented. And that's the coronavirus issue. And then we have the vote by mail thing I spent a week talking about. I mean, folks, you've seen some of this stuff. New York, Detroit, Nevada. These have been intentional quagmires. They want you to think it's the new norm to count votes for a week, 2 weeks. They want you to think that. Don't let them. That's going back to framing the debate. There is no reason with all this technology and how long we've been conducting elections for elections to take this long in this country. So right now, honestly, I would put his chances. I'd hate to put a mark on it before Labor Day. I really would, but it ain't 70% anymore. I'll tell you that. I think it's probably more like, I don't know, 40, 50. I don't know. But we got to really see where we are when we get closer to that vote, because let me just say one more time, all of the indicators that do go into modeling an election forecast, Barnes made a great point last week when they're trying to tell you, well, compare this to that. They're not telling you to compare the polls from 3 months, 4 months before the election. They're trying to, that's not what's done. You look at the final ones, and the indicators that you look at are indicators of when people are voting and leading up to the time of the election. So right now we have to assume the vote would be held today to give a number like that. If the vote was held today, I think Donald Trump would lose. I'll be clear about that. I just think it would be closer, a lot closer than everybody thinks, because of Pennsylvania and New Hampshire. That was shocking to me. All right. But there are some states where he's in deep trouble, so we'll get into that. But all right, let me shut up and let Laura ask another question.
Well, not only that, but I want to comment, if we can all have elections on one day in horse and buggy time, we can definitely all make it one day this day and age. Back to questions. Jack Lawton, going back on yesterday, the OPI poll from yesterday had Maricopa County, Biden +7, Pima County, I'm probably butchering these names, Biden +27, and rural counties, Trump +16.
Listen, I'm glad that you found that, because we were talking about it briefly yesterday. I said I would take a look at it. I think there's no reason to question the results of that pollster as far as like their integrity or anything. I just want to make that clear. I think they're doing some interesting stuff. I will say this, looking at the rural vote alone, I think it's pretty indicative of response bias. And maybe even, well, not maybe, if it anything to do with what I'm getting, there's definitely social desirability bias in there. But response bias is when you simply aren't getting enough people or a representative number of those, whether it's geography or whatever, to take the polls from one side. All right. So the example I always use was Mitt Romney was never ahead of Barack Obama after the first presidential debate. Barack Obama performed very poorly, and more Republicans were willing to speak to the pollsters than prior. And he never pulled back ahead. Democrats just felt better about talking to the pollster after the second debate, and there was more in the sample. If you look at that rural vote share, even McSally got double that margin in when she lost to Kirsten Sinema. Does anybody seriously think that Martha McSally circa 2018 is going to outperform Donald Trump in rural Arizona 2020? Does anybody just think about that? Marinate on that for a second. All right. And then Maricopa, Biden +7 is a silly, silly joke. Okay. That tells me it's not only that they're not reaching enough. Don't get into the trap of there's not enough Republicans in the poll, because that doesn't always matter. Which Republicans did you reach and which ones did you talk to? Because they're not all the same. And Fox News has a habit of doing this. It's very bad. It's the way they collect data. It's how their modes of doing it. The way they poll people. It's not whether or not they reach enough Republicans, which often they don't. It's the kind of Republicans that they're reaching. A metro Republican person, if you're more likely to take a survey than others, Trump supporters and people who support Donald Trump this year are not going to be as willing to talk to pollsters. And just by looking at that rural vote breakdown, I'm not even saying Biden doesn't have a chance in Arizona. He does. I just think it would be very difficult, and he's not carrying Maricopa County by 7 points. He's just not. All right. And by the way, look at the electorate breakdown, Jared, right? Jared asked that question, or John. Look at the electorate breakdown and go look at the primary vote. Do we see the turnout disparity was 2 points, and yet there were still more Republican ballots? Their independents in that county are not going to vote like independents in the rest of the state. And I say this every damn election year. That's why I said they did this too. Their cinema +9s and +7s they had, and they actually leaned slightly to McSally a few times, especially toward the end. Cinema was never ahead by 7 points or 9 points, and she damn sure was never going to carry Maricopa County by those margins. She eked out Maricopa County and then eked out the election statewide. That's not going to happen. All right. So let's get into. They're just not there yet. They don't have the vote yet to do that. All right.
All right, DC perspective. U.S. producer prices up 0.6% in July, biggest jump since 2018. Your thoughts?
You know what? I can't wait after this episode. That's the very next thing that I'm going to edit and publish. Again, like I said, nothing goes on PPD without my okay with that. Yeah, and if you noticed, that was the high end of the forecast range. The low end was 0.2%, the high end was 0.6, and the consensus was about half of that. It's that's a solid number. That's good. That's good. We'll see if the CPI tomorrow repeats that. I mean, they're not the same indicators, but I didn't mute Laura's. That's why she's echoing over there. Yeah, they're not the same indicators, but we needed that. We absolutely did need that. And I'm looking at it for tomorrow because I want to know whether or not just because prices go up consumer side does not necessarily mean it's going to slow down consumer spending. All right. So, yeah, I think it's solid. That's good. And you need to see big records like this. You need to. The problem is the labor end of this. And that will all slow down if wages, if labor market doesn't tighten back up. This will all slow down anyway. So still trying to claw itself back. And real quick, what was the prior was negative 0.2. So it's gained back. I think that means we're back at the baseline. I got to look at it. But yeah, I saw that as we were talking before. Some of the ways this show, we're at 10 o'clock. That indicator, I would have to bump the show back. I don't want to do that anymore. I want to claw back to 10 o'clock. Came out at 8:30. So does the CPI tomorrow. But this show prep is a lot. So when I get off here, I'll go and I'll give the green light to put it up. But we'll get that chart up. It's neat. And take a look at it. Maybe we can even circle back. If the CPI comes out tomorrow, we'll go over them both more in detail tomorrow. All right.
Okay. All right. Jim, a while back, you mentioned that the Asian vote was less assimilated in 2018 than it was in 92. Is this similar to what Charles Murray has noted with whites and a newly formed upper class?
Yes. And let me look. Here's the thing. And we went over the education statistics on this because Asians are disproportionately more educated and they're all living in enclaves together. So you used to have the gentrified liberal, the educated liberal, pretty much isolated and like in their own neighborhoods, going back to like the 90s, for instance. And actually, many of them, even though they were gentrified, many of them would break in certain elections and vote for Republicans when they felt like their own little needs were in jeopardy. We saw that in New York City with Rudy Giuliani. But now they're living in the same bubble. All right. Many of these people is where I'm saying, like many of these educated, more upper class, the definition of suburbia that the media puts on, when we talk about these issues and polls and political support and coalitions, that is not the vast majority of a suburban voter, but that's who they mean when they say suburban voter. Okay. Those upper class, educated, higher income people are absolutely leaning to the left. And the difference is now Asians are living in the cultural atmosphere. And when you're there and it's a 10-year, looking at the latest census, it'll show you that's a 10-year trend. Things really can start to change and take effect, and cultures can influence one another. So that's something new that we're having. And I don't expect those to flip back anytime soon. I really don't. I think this divide is going to grow. I think you're going to have less divide based on race and more divide based on race, education and culture and income. So it'll be a bigger class divide. Again, go back to 2018. That was a pretty bad election in the House for Republicans. They lost vote share pretty much even in senatorial races, even though they may have taken some, and they did. It still showed pretty convincingly that we weren't just talking about regular suburbs, every suburb. We were talking about metro suburbs, gentrified suburbs, ones that are closer to the urban lifestyle. All right. And upper income and more educated. And Republicans didn't necessarily have a minority voter problem. They had a urban and metro minority voter problem. It didn't matter really what the voter was. In fact, in 2016 and 18, when we broke up that Asian vote share, most people think, well, it's the Asian vote. They must mean Chinese and this, that. There's a lot that goes into Asian. Indians go into Asian. When we split that up and we parse out what most people think to be an Asian vote, then that pulls off and you can see the Democratic constituencies in there. And then you can see others that aren't so Democratic. Koreans, Indians, they broke for Trump and are polling 52-48. So, I mean, and actually they can be even more Republican. So that Asian just gets lumped in. They're a lesser share of the population than, say, like Chinese or in a lot of areas. So that are more liberal. All right. And then, of course, they, like I said, they tend to be more educated. I will have those. I'll grab those educations. I got them right here. I'm just not sure I can plop them on the fly. But look, I mean, 47.4% of foreign-born who arrived in the U.S. from 2010 and 19 had a bachelor's degree of higher. That compares to 36.3% of native-born Americans. When we cross that, reference that, which you can see in the second to latter part of the paragraph, they're disproportionately Asian and other minorities. The white domestic American, even educated, is progressing at a lower rate. Is what I'm saying. So they'll become less and less share of the electorate too as time goes on. So we're talking about the suburban vote or the educated vote as if it's the same vote. Like the voters that we talked about winning, going for Mitt Romney in those areas, Bucks County is not. That's not a great idea. Delaware, all right. Those are not the same voters. It's not like all of a sudden those voters were all for Mitt Romney and then switched and ran from Donald Trump. The areas themselves have changed. The people in those areas have changed. And, over time, that's what you can always count on, folks. The only thing, which is why I hate walls, the idea of walls, the only thing you can ever count on being consistent in electoral politics is that political coalitions are consistently changing. They never stay the same, ever. I mean, it's just not something you can bank on. And this is why Democrats love uniformity, because they simply don't trust white people. Ever since the 80s, they just, even registered Democrats, they know that white people swing, and they need baked in, more monolithic constituencies, which is why we went over what Biden said the other day was absolutely a racist comment, because that's how the white liberal thinks. They believe that. And there is a racial component there, so it's right. Whether they understand it's racist, it's freaking racist, folks. That's how they think. All right, one more and then we're a wrap, all right?
How about two? Because then that leaves me with two more. Thank you. I know I win. Okay, so Yoda Root wants to know, how do you feel about John James' chances?
Not good. Not good. He put on a hell of a show in 2018, but John James, I'm sure he's a wonderful guy. But again, he's a perfect example of how he's not doing much to convince people to vote for him. And then in a state like Michigan, they can't rely on Donald Trump for all the political stars to align for them and to drag them across the finish line. It needs to be a state where the Republican Party has demonstrated that they are not the party that they used to be years ago. They're back to their working class roots, and that they're going to be on board. John James has equivocated quite a bit with Donald Trump, folks. He lost in 2018 because she got Clinton-level turnouts in Clinton areas, and he did not get Trump-level turnouts in Trump areas. He did very well in Wayne and other typically blue areas. He did very well. He put on a hell of a show. Unfortunately, he didn't squeeze out of votes where Republicans need to squeeze votes out of to win. Like, you missed quite a few of the 110,000 in Livingston we were just talking about the other day. And Donald Trump did not. And in fact, Donald Trump won some of the remaining. They fight upper, the center, the peninsula, upper peninsula in Michigan. It's obviously more conservative, but there still are on the way up. There still are tons of labor-rooted communities that will look at a candidate like Donald Trump and say, that kind of Republican I'll vote for. All right. But I'm not going to vote for these squishy Republican rhinos like George Romney, the mold of George Romney, right? That's not the same Michigan. That Michigan's gone. It's gone forever. And John James has tried to sit on the fence and like straddle it. Like, yeah, Trump is doing great work here, but, I really don't like how he does this. And good luck, John. And that's why you can't. And by the way, you cannot win a campaign in a blue state or light blue state by appearing on Fox News. And I'll end it there. And if you guys, if you're from Michigan, you know what I'm talking about. You got to earn that. You got to earn it.
You see, you were so fast that we probably could squeeze an extra one after this. All right. Lampcrow, how flippable is Connecticut once Joe Courtney retires? And most of its towns are getting redder every year in local elections.
Yeah, that's where I was going to go to answer that. So if you look at the local levels, which is how you piece together a winning coalition and flip a state, you do it one state Senate district at a time. You do it one state assembly seat, not Connecticut. But if I showed you Connecticut, which we really should, again, do, right? It will look no worse or ugly on the voter file than sometimes in a bad given year for Pennsylvania. I mean, the voter file looks terrible itself. There's a lag in registration. Republicans have made up 185 in Pennsylvania, not quite as many, obviously, in Connecticut, but there are state Senate districts where Republicans have made gains. The last one being one they didn't. Democrats had it for like 28 years or something ridiculous a number. And then they did that off the back of white working class and blue collar outside of, again, the metro burbs in some of the districts, because that's the way they carve out. I believe Connecticut is winnable for the right Republican and right Republican candidate. I do. I just do. Look, if you told Democrats 10 years ago that Arizona, or 15 years ago, that Arizona could be a winnable state, everybody would have laughed. If you said we could maybe lock up the Electoral College by taking Texas away from Republicans, everybody would have laughed. All right? Like I just said before, and I will repeat it again, the only thing consistent about in politics is that political coalitions consistently change. Constantly. It will always be that way. And Democrats have just done better at grabbing those opportunities. Connecticut, too, and part of the reason why, how flippable is it? If they stick with the Trumplican message, maybe you don't have to deliver it in Trump fashion, but if they stick with the Trumplican message, which is nothing actually new, the Bush family changed the Republican Party. That wing and that philosophy from those kind of Republicans changed the Republican Party. Trumpism, MAGAnomics, that is more Republican at its roots than George Bush will ever be. They changed that party. George Bush, circa 2000, was a Republican. Circa 2004, he was not. All right? That is not what a real Republican was and has been at their core. If they stick to that, then Connecticut is an extremely depressed area, very white, loads of working class. Barnes and I were talking about that too, and we will talk more about this tomorrow, right? Same thing that makes Maine tilt. If you open the Maine voter file, it doesn't look great for Republicans because the history of the Democratic roots are strong and deep, and it takes time to undo that because they have such a history and tradition. But their ideology is, and by the way, we could also say with Connecticut, a big thing that was a big issue for Connecticut there, which worked towards some of even the suburban women that they're struggling with. This transgender issue does not play with the Northeastern suburbanite. It doesn't. In white states like Connecticut, they don't like it. They don't like it. And they may virtue signal, but they don't like this kind of cultural change. They still have and they're economically depressed areas. So they understand, like they see the fruits of your labor and what can happen if somebody's like kind of shafted out of an opportunity, let's say like their daughter who's run track and field their entire high school career and was going to plan to use that to go to like Penn or something, right? But then it comes and it gets ripped from them. That was a huge opportunity. Republicans just totally let it blow over. It was very unpopular when you asked people in IVR and you said, listen, your response will be confidential. You can be honest. Your responses are confidential. The interview is anonymous. they will tell you the truth, and it's not good. Again, it's just one of many things. Like I said, like Democrats are very good with seeing those opportunities and then finding little wedge issues like that and driving them home. And Republicans, they don't do it. And they may win a couple local races touted on Twitter and then never put the legwork in, though, that makes it flip on the presidential level, which is can be much harder. Like North Carolina, who will vote for Democrats at the gubernatorial race, local stuff. But when it comes to their presidential vote, they don't like to. There are a lot of Democrats who will still vote Republican. And pollsters miss that crap all the time.
So you think Courtney's seat is possible?
Yeah, but anytime an incumbent leaves, okay, I understand the argument in 18 that incumbency wasn't as strong as it typically is. I am still a big believer in the power of the power of incumbency. Anytime an incumbent leaves, there's an opportunity, but you have to lay groundwork though. So like that's not really it's not enough is my point. You get it. What happens if the party gets a strong candidate, right? And you didn't put the legwork in, they'll stick with their tradition is what I'm saying. It's not, Republicans have been always constantly on the defensive. They're not on the offensive anymore. And that's a problem. All right, I got to wrap it here, folks. I do. It's 12:35. Laura got me about 5 minutes over. All right. All right. Thanks for watching Inside the Numbers, folks, with the People's Pundit. I'm the People's Pundit, Rich Barris. Do not forget to like the page on Facebook and subscribe on YouTube. Of course, the best way to support the show is to subscribe to People's Pundit Daily, which you can do by going to ppdnews.us/subscribe. ppdnews.us/subscribe. And thank you to all of you who have done that since we started the show. We can absolutely love you for it. Special thanks to Madam Producer Laura for doing the questions and everything else that she does around here. We will see you back tomorrow, folks. Don't forget, 10 a.m. tomorrow, Eastern Standard Time. We're going 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. We'll go over the PPI more in depth for that questioner. We'll also take a look at the CPI, which will come out at 8:30, and we'll probably be talking about Biden's VP. All right? It could come it's imminent at this point. Maybe sometime this week for sure, supposedly. But from what we're told, it really could come today. It's possible. All right. All the best, folks. See you in the AM. Taking It Out with Bad Habit by the Grammy-considered Bone Band. I did it again. All right, folks. Thanks for watching. I'll see you tomorrow.